All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight for the Evergreen Health Forum. I'm Mark Newman. I'm the program manager for NAMI Eastside. NAMI Eastside is an affiliate of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, the nation's largest grassroots mental health advocacy organization. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Evergreen Health Forum, who's sponsoring our forums, which takes place every third Tuesday at 7 o'clock. Our next forum will be July 19th. Our speaker tonight is Dr. Karen Lumb. Dr. Karen Lumb is a network care level 3 quantum practitioner, author, educator, and founder of Vitality Wellness Center, a somatic healing practice in Redmond, Washington. As a chiropractor, Dr. Karen uses her 25 years of experience in neuromuscular skeletal science, somatic awareness, and transformative personal development to help her clients heal from past emotional, mental, and physical trauma. She loves seeing her clients reach and sustain new levels of energy, clarity, and fulfillment so they can feel better and live healthier lives. Dr. Karen teaches monthly body breathing workshops and is a sought-after speaker on achieving new levels of personal growth by de-stressing your life, calming your mind, and centering your body. So thank you so much, Dr. Karen.
Thank you so much, Mark. That was a lovely introduction, and I'm just so honored to be here and invited to be the speaker. So I'm going to thank Barbie, even though she's not here, but she will be watching it as a recording. So welcome everybody. The title of my talk today is The Secret to Thriving in Our Stressful World, a Mindfulness Approach. And my focus is going to be on actually anxiety. And the reason in doing so is that I will tell you that in the last 3 months, I'm going to say almost 100% of all my new clients are coming in with anxiety, coexisting with other types of body pain, digestive issues. And so, and the work that I do, which is a mindfulness approach, has been extremely effective. So what I'm going to do is go into some really great details about anxiety. And, you know, a lot of you may already know some of this, some of you may not. So I really hope that you'll come away from this presentation with at least one aha moment and a learning experience. We'll talk about stress physiology, do a little bit of delving into the brain and how that works when it comes to anxiety, and some really wonderful MRI studies that support mindfulness. And then a little more detail about the mindfulness practice that I have. And we're also going to save the questions for the very end. Otherwise, I'll be answering questions. The next thing you know, it'll be midnight and we just won't be out of here. So I grew up actually in a very alternative household when it comes to health and wellness. As you can see from the photo here with my brother and my mom and dad, I mean, this is a very conservative looking family. However, when it comes to health and wellness, in the 1970s, our household, we were exposed to transcendental meditation and Reiki. We were eating brown bread sandwiches, which is unheard of at that time, grape nuts, and of course, chiropractic care. So it's no wonder that both my brother and I practice a very alternative version of chiropractic care. So at my practice in Vitality Wellness Center, right here in Redmond, I practice network spinal care. It's a very gentle and holistic chiropractic approach for healing the spine and the nervous system. Central nervous system is reorganized. It enhances the parasympathetic mode, which is that rest and digest healthy mode. I also practice SOMATO respiratory integration, which is a mindfulness practice that incorporates body, breath, and awareness exercises that I'll go into a little more detail later. So just a few kind of update statistics regarding anxiety, because things have changed in the past few years. So anxiety is the most common mental illness in the United States. Nearly 50 million Americans are suffering from anxiety. The rates of anxiety and depression in adults is 4 times higher between April 2020 and August of 2021 than it was compared to 2019. Now, what's really interesting is that anxiety was already on the rise in adolescents before the pandemic, and of course, it is continuing to rise. Now, with regards to teens, sadly, ER visits for self-harming rose 329% in 1 decade. Suicide rate increased 40% in 1 decade, sadness and hopelessness up from 26 to 44% in 1 decade. So clearly there was a problem before the pandemic, and now it's even more so. Now, anxiety actually is a natural, normal response to potential threats. It puts your body into a heightened state of awareness. Anxiety is actually very beneficial and can keep you out of harm's way. It causes you to become more careful and more purposeful in your movements. But for 42, well, actually now it's 50 million adults, anxiety occurs even when there's no real threat, causing unnecessary stress and emotional pain. What it does to the brain, it evokes the same fight or flight response that stress does, triggering a flood of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, which enhance your speed, reflexes, heart rate, and circulation. So anxiety compared to stress. Anxiety gives you a sense of fear, dread, or apprehension. It's more of an internal response. Stress, though, can occur with anger, sadness, happiness, or excitement. Now, here's the first MRI study. This is entitled The Brain's Emotional Region, which is the amygdala here, which is the fear center of the brain. Actually grows bigger, so it enlarges and more connected in children with daily anxiety. And this is also true, they found in MRI studies with adults. So a child experiencing greater anxiety than normal had a larger amygdala with stronger connections to other part of the emotional brain. And this is anxiety that is a common emotional reaction to stress. And MRI studies on adults demonstrated that one effect of prolonged stress to be is an enlarged and highly connected amygdala. So what that means is basically when you're experiencing the world and your amygdala is enlarged and it has more connections, then more than likely your experience is through the fear center of the brain, which then causes anxiety. So don't be frightened by this, by this slide, and don't even try to read it. I'm gonna just describe what's going on here. So this is actually from a Time magazine article a while ago, but it really does a great job of describing how does anxiety develop when it comes to experiencing a lot of stress in the world. So when your senses meaning sight, hearing, taste, touch, when your senses pick up a threat, like a loud noise, a scary sight, or a creepy feeling, the information takes 2 different routes through the brain. So there's the shortcut, the fast route. And when the brain is startled, it automatically engages in an emergency hotline to the amygdala. So there's the amygdala right there, it's the fear center. Once activated, the amygdala sends an equivalent of an all points bulletin that alerts other brain structures. So the classic fear response is then sweaty palms, rapid heart rate, increased blood pressure, and a burst of adrenaline. All this happens before the mind is conscious of having smelled or touched anything. So basically, before you know why you're afraid, you are afraid. Because then there's the slow route, or what they call the high road. And this is where information, after the fear response is activated, the conscious mind kicks into gear. So some of the sensory information, rather than traveling just directly to the amygdala, takes a more circuitous route. It stops first at the thalamus. This is the processing hub for sensory cues. Then it goes to the outer layer of the brain cells, otherwise known as the cortex. The cortex then analyzes the raw data streaming in through the senses and decides whether they require the fear response. And if so, then it signals the amygdala, hey, keep going the way you're going, the body stays on alert. Now, how does the body respond? By putting the brain on alert, the amygdala triggers a series of changes in brain chemicals and hormones that puts the entire body in anxiety mode. So cortisol and adrenaline are flooding your system, which puts you in the fight, flight, sympathetic mode of the nervous system. Now, here's what's interesting. The prefrontal cortex actually is where the anxiety response is shut off. So, and I will go into this in more detail, but let's move forward. Basically, repeated stressors cause anxiety. There are so many studies that show this. that really the bottom line is just stress. Exposure to stress will ultimately cause anxiety. Now, this article by in the Atlantic by Derek Thompson, he's saying there's 4 forces that are propelling the rising rates of depression among young people. So social media use, sociality, getting together in person is reduced, modern parenting strategies. So what he's referring to here is he's citing the extra pressure that a lot of parents put on their kids to go to college. So that's what he was specifically referring to. Bottom line, though, the world is stressful. All right, so I want to take a moment to talk about stress and what is stress. 75% to 90% of all doctors' office visits are for stress-related ailments and complaints. And this was back in 1997, so it potentially could be higher. So when we think of stress, we typically think of emotional and mental stress, right? This is where a person is typically experiencing a lack. So a lack of love, a lack of connection, a lack of finance, a lack of time, a lack of sleep, a lack of resources. That is typically stress, emotional and mental stress. All ages will experience this. But what are other stressors that will affect the nervous system and affect the brain? Well, there's physical stressors. So lifting something too heavy and injuring yourself, sports injuries, car accidents. Now, check this out. And remember this posture right here, because we're going to delve more into this. But this is a physical stressor called a microtrauma. The prolonged sitting and that head coming forward actually is kind of like a really, really slow car accident with the compression on the spine and the nerves. Again, we'll go into more detail of that in a bit. Chemical stressors. So if you're exposed to pesticides, smog, alcohol, sorry guys, the sugary foods, medication and caffeine. So let me go back and just make this clear. So chemical stressors are basically anything that your body absorbs or that you take into your body does not use as a nutrient. Now, with regards to medication, now we're compounding the emotional mental stress because, you know, medication is a way to manage anxiety, but now we've got 2 different types of stressors going on. Caffeine, tap water, smoking, soda. So all those are great examples of chemical stressors that can put your brain into that fight flight mode. So let's talk about what happens when we're exposed to any of these stressors. So your autonomic nervous system is the part of your nervous system that basically does everything automatically. So you don't have to think about your breathing. You don't have to think about your heart rate. You don't have to think about digesting food. It controls and coordinates all of your glands, all of your tissues, all of your muscles. And it has a mode that is called the sympathetic or fight or flight, which is triggered by stress, or the parasympathetic rest and digest mode. This is the healthy healing mode. That's the mode we want to be living in. Now, this part of our nervous system, it's like a seesaw, okay? On one hand, if you have too many stressors, your sympathetic or fight or flight mode is going to be triggered and you're going to get stuck there because we don't have a way to naturally unwind from it. But in reality, we really want to be living in that parasympathetic rest and digest mode. That's the mode where your body heals quickly, where you sleep well through the night, where you wake up feeling energized, your immune system is strong, and you feel passionate about the day. All right, so when we're under stress, I mentioned cortisol. One of the things that cortisol does is it directs blood flow from the neocortex, which is the more highly evolved part of the brain. It directs the blood flow down to the reptilian part of the brain because what's being needed is the fight, flight mode, survival mode, okay? So when it was talking about how the neocortex is in charge of actually stopping the anxiety response, so just consider this, when we're in fight, flight mode, survival mode, Most of the energy in the blood flow is here. So it is literally almost neurologically impossible for the brain to actually shut off the anxiety response if you've experienced enough stressors during the day. The survival brain is all about reacting and doing the same thing over and over again. The neocortex, or the more highly evolved part of the brain, is about being responsive. It's where creativity, language, the ability to hold different viewpoints at once, to make healthy decisions. So just know, if you've been experiencing a lot of stress, you've been literally hijacked and by your reptilian part of the brain, and it is harder to make healthy lifestyle choices. And also almost impossible to stop the anxiety response. What else does the sympathetic nervous system, when it's activated, or that fight flight mode, what does your body do? Well, first of all, the nervous system is going to trigger anxiety to happen, that anxiety response. But you're also going to get tense muscles, tension headaches, migraines. These are just examples. The respiratory system, you may experience hyperventilation, panic attacks. The cardiovascular system is affected. You may experience high blood pressure, heart disease, heart attack. Your endocrine system, you may experience weakened immune system, so you may get sick more often. You may develop allergies or have diabetes. Your GI system is affected. You may get heartburn, acid reflux, nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, diarrhea, constipation. Your reproductive system is also affected. You may be impotent. You may have painful menstrual cycles or decreased sex drive. So if you've ever recognized, and again, this is what I notice with my clients, anybody coming in with anxiety or a lot of stress in their lives, they're typically going to have also one of these or more show up as a symptom. Okay, but in reality, instead of focusing on let's focus on nausea, just knowing that this is really a result of stress, knowing that if you can reroute or unwind from that stress mode, fight flight mode, and move into the parasympathetic healing mode, then this is all going to start to heal finally. So one of the other things that cortisol does is it tightens down the tiny muscles that line the spine. And over time, we start getting this forward head posture going this way, and it stretches the spinal cord. So just in case you didn't know what this is actually your spinal cord. You have all the nerves that exit out to every single part of you. So there should be some kind of a relaxed look with all the nerves coming out. But if your spinal cord is being stretched because of this posture, then there's actual distortion and tension in any part of your nervous system, which is why you're going to start to have a breakdown in any of the systems, like your cardiovascular or your GI system. Your nervous system is an extensive network that channels nerve impulses from your brain to virtually every single cell that makes up your body. So as your head starts to come forward, and as you can see, this person is looking at their, their device, just know that if your head is forward and down, you're looking at your device, or your head is forward and down because you're looking at your computer, you're actually enhancing that spinal cord tension. Now, these are all the organs or the areas in your body that are controlled by all the nerves that exit out. But if they're stretching in the spinal cord and any part of the nerves here, these are the possible symptoms that you're going to get. Again, this is all a result of stress, emotional, mental, chemical, and physical stressors causing the nervous system to get stuck in that fight flight mode instead of being in that parasympathetic rest and digest mode. This is what causes anxiety. Okay, so this is one of my favorite slides because it just fully represents your options. So the term fight or flight, fight or flight or run. When you're faced with danger, as you can see, these nature photographers are faced with danger, you have two choices. You either get to stay and fight for your life, or you run away. And obviously, these photographers have decided to run away from the bear, which I'm not so sure is the best choice, but this is what their nervous systems, they were running probably before they even had a chance to think about it. But what I want you to do is just think about the energy that would be expended if you had to fight for your life right? Or you had to run away for your life. That's a lot of energy. And the same response happens when you're in an argument with your spouse, where there's family stress, when there's financial stress, when after you've had a car accident. So we don't typically fight our way out or run away if we're having work stress, but where does all that energy go? Well, it gets stored as tension in your spine, your muscles, and your nervous system. Again, creating pain response, tension response, and stretching that spinal cord. Also, if you look at the posture too, this guy especially, his head is forward. So when you're running for your life, you're actually in that forward head posture that cortisol causes. And when you're fighting for your life, you're typically not sitting up straight. Your head is bent down as well. So that's what fight or flight is. So let's move. I kind of do bad news and now we're doing good news. So solutions. What do we do about this? Well, as you all may know or may not know, the common treatments for anxiety are psychotherapy, medication, exercise, diet, and most recently, maybe in the past 10 to 15 years, mindfulness is starting to make its way as a wonderful resource and a way to address anxiety. I am going to focus on the mindfulness part of the treatment for anxiety. So here is the good news. We had the MRI study that talked about the amygdala that got larger with more connections when exposed to repeated stressors that cause anxiety. Here's the good news. The good news is that what they found on MRI studies is that the adult brain, as well as adolescent and children's brain, possess a remarkable ability to have plasticity and to reverse the structures in response to stressful events. So what does that mean? That means that the reverse can happen. That means that in plasticity of the brain structures can actually change. So they found that with mindfulness activities, the amygdala actually shrinks and gets smaller. And there's something called pruning, where all of those attachments to the other parts of the brain through the fear center, they actually are removed. So what that means is that through mindfulness activities, you can actually structurally change and improve your experience of the world, because your brain, including the hippocampus, the amygdala, the prefrontal cortex, can all decrease the expression of the behaviors and the behavioral states that are related to anxiety. So that is fantastic news, actually. Harvard Business Review in 2015, they had an article entitled Mindfulness Can Literally Change Your Brain. So what they did was they looked at a study that was done on adults that were taking an 8-week mindfulness program. And what they found were the same thing, that there was plasticity, there was change in the gray matter, there was less activity in the amygdala. And other neuroscientists have also found that practicing mindfulness affects the brain areas related to perception, body awareness, pain tolerance, emotional regulation, introspection, complex thinking, and sense of self. In fact, they concluded by saying mindfulness shouldn't be considered just as a nice to have. It's a must have, keeping our brains healthy and protecting us from toxic stress. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the work that I do because it falls into the mindfulness category, especially the hands-on body breathing exercises that I teach, both in my practice and also in workshops. I do go into the community, well, not so much in the last 2 years, but prior to that, I taught these mindfulness exercises called SOMATO respiratory integration at Lake Washington, both in the middle schools, the high schools, at fitness centers, in businesses, and so forth. Okay, so at my practice Vitality Wellness Center, again, I use the gentle healing techniques of network spinal analysis and SOMATO, which is body respiratory breathing integration. It allows your nervous system to get out of that fight flight mode so that what my clients experience is feeling more vibrant, joyful, healthy in mind, body, and spirit. Very gentle, precise touch to the spine redistributes and releases spinal tension and reorganizes the nervous system. As we saw through those MRI studies that this actually does happen, has a calming effect on the nervous system, the sympathetic or that fight flight nervous system, and wakes up the parasympathetic nervous system so that the body can go finally into the healing mode and start reversing those brain changes. It's really gentle and safe for everybody. I work with newborns, I work with children, teenagers, I work with elderly, and what my clients experience is living with less pain and disease. They experience more energy and vitality, greater passion and enthusiasm. There was one of the largest retrospective studies done at the UC Irvine School of Medicine on over 2,400 people who were receiving network care. And what they found is that there were some definitive benefits in physical well-being, emotional well-being, mental well-being, and then overall quality of life. And this definitely included less stress and less depression, less anxiety, and being able to make better lifestyle choices. Because when you finally don't have cortisol dumping in your system, blood flow starts to return to that prefrontal cortex where you are making better lifestyle choices, in addition to that anxiety response finally starting to slow down and stop. SRI, or SOMATO respiratory integration. So these are the body breathing exercises, again, that I teach at my office as part of the session, and that I also teach in the community as workshops. So it involves gentle touch, breath, movement, focused attention. And what's happening is you're connecting with the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the cranial nerve that's in charge of parasympathetic tone. And so it activates the vagus nerve, reverses the fight or flight stress response, and advances the healing process. Your defense or unconscious resistance is decreased, helps you to locate where you're storing tension and ease, improves the posture, allows for more deep breathing. So let's talk about breath for a moment. When you're in that tense fight flight mode, how is your breath, right? It's typically shallow, it's typically short. And with network care and with SRI, the breath naturally becomes deeper and more full. That is a sign that your nervous system is finally moving into that parasympathetic mode and that healing mode. And the more often that that happens, then that becomes your new norm. So most people in the world today are walking around in a certain level of fight flight mode. And the reptilian part of the brain is running the show. And this strategies that develop through breathing and through movement allow you to move into that parasympathetic mode, and that starts to become your new normal. Your body becomes more flexible, and you get a more integrated experience of the body and the mind. So what I'd love to do now, we've got about 10 more minutes, is just talk about a few clients of mine. So some real life clients, the names have been changed. And when they first came in, so Holly, let's talk about Holly. She's 15. I'm seeing a lot of teenagers right now. Her health concerns were overreacting to life stressors, being overly worried about small things. She experienced anxiety. She had difficulty concentrating, nausea, headaches, and fatigue. So now that you kind of understand the role that the nervous system plays with the fight flight mode, it totally makes sense that not only do you have anxiety, but you also may have nausea or difficulty concentrating or headaches and fatigue. Her life stressors, she had a lot of family stress, she had a lot of school stress, and vaccinations were her history of chemical stressors. Now, I do a progress visit every 15 visits. And so we sit down and I find out from my clients, what are they noticing differently? What's improved for them? She reported that she had no more nausea, no more headaches. Her posture was better. She had more confidence. She started working. She now breathes when stressed, and she started exercising. So some really good quality of life changes for her. Marie was 49. She was in a serious auto accident 7 months prior to coming to see me. She had done physical therapy, more traditional chiropractic, and she was literally at her wit's end, almost suicidal, because she was experiencing tremendous severe neck, shoulder, back pain, depression, fatigue, headaches, limited mobility, dizziness, anxiety, difficulty concentrating, poor sleep, and heartburn. She also had some minor brain injury as well. She was unable to work. That created more family stress. She already had a history of family stress. She experienced abuse, physical and verbal, when she was a child. And she had a major move from another country is a major stressor in life 15 years ago. At her progress visit, she told me she was able to focus better. She was now able to start and finish small tasks, like doing the dishes. She was so excited that she could finally now stand up without pain, start doing the dishes, and actually finish. She felt stronger. She started walking. She was having less pain. Her mobility was improved, better mood, more confidence, more energy, and she was cooking and cleaning. And that made her feel just so happy, and she wanted to continue care. Let's see. Now, it's not letting, oh, there we go. Okay. John is 55. His health concerns were foot pain, shoulder pain, depression, fatigue, nausea, constipation, shallow breathing, and anxiety. His life stressors: he'd been through a divorce, which meant he had a very challenged marriage. He wasn't able to exercise. He had a series of falls, hand injuries, knocked unconscious. He grew up on a farm, so he had a lot of farm injuries. He does it like 40 plus hours a week of sitting computer work, and had taken pain meds that wasn't helping. His progress visit: he's starting to walk more, started playing pickleball. He was hiking, skiing, felt more compassion, was a better listener. He was eating more salad and had more energy. Finally, Bryce. He was 3 when his parents brought him in. He was diagnosed with autism. He had delayed language, limited eye contact, very irritable, poor attention span. He had a very difficult birth, and vaccinations were a part of his chemical stressors. At his progress visit, and I'm going to say actually after his first visit, he was definitely calmer, but at the progress visit, which was after a series of sessions, his attention span was improved. He was more relaxed and focused. He was now starting to put 2 and 3 word sentences together. He was interacting with other students. He had better eye contact and better sleep. So I am actually just going to wrap it up right now and then open it up to questions. But what I would, just as a thank you for attending and also inviting me to speak at your forum, if you want to screenshot this, but this is a gift card that we have at our office. And if you know of anybody, yourself included, who you feel would really benefit from finding out more about network spinal care and SRI, we are gifting the initial 2 visits. So it's a consultation exam, talk about your health goals, 2 network sessions, so you can start to feel what it feels like to move into that rest and digest mode. All of my contact information is there. And so again, feel free to screenshot this, or if you want to call into my office, just mention that you were at this presentation. So again, thank you so much. I am super happy. I think I'm gonna stop sharing. So hopefully everybody's had a chance to write this down. And so that should open it up. So yes, there is everybody. So I'm opening it up to any type of questions that you may have or comments.
How long
and it's a lot of information.
How long does somebody typically engage in treatment?
It totally depends on the person. So with network care, there's what we call levels of care. Level 1, level 2, level 3. So level 1 is typically the first 4 to 6 weeks of care. This is when the person coming in for care starts to experience the most change from their symptoms. Okay. And really everybody is different, but this is just kind of an average, right? And then after they develop the level 1 strategies, which is a deep full respiration that happens under the radar, so different than the breathing exercise, then I advance them, graduate them to level 2. Level 2 of care, or transform care. This is where the deeper, older attention patterns finally start to basically unpack, release. The healing process is kind of like the peeling away of the layers of the onion, right? So when you get to transform care, these are the deeper, older tension patterns, oftentimes from childhood. And so think of tension as really just like bound up energy, right? And when it's released, it becomes free available energy. Greatest example is just a rubber band. So if you stretch it, right, that's tension. It's under tension. There's a lot of bound up energy. I let go. It actually moves. It travels. There's energy available now, right? So same thing with our bodies. And in transform care, when the older tension patterns start to release, then the person experiences not only deeper healing, especially of chronic issues, but also more energy, more because they're feeling better, they have more energy, and the focus starts to be more about the solution and taking action. So when everybody comes in to see me at first, it's about the pain, it's about the problem. When you start moving into transform care, there's a shift. There's more clarity in mind. There's more and easier decision making. For some people, this takes 5 months. For some people, it's 9 months. We're talking oftentimes with adults, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years of tension, right? It's been layered and layered and layered. So we're unpacking all of that. It doesn't take 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years to release, but it takes some time. There's no quick overnight fix. And I meet with everybody every 15 visits. So I'm always checking in and letting people know, letting my clients know, hey, this is where you're at in care, and this is where we're headed. Do you still want to continue? So, it's all optional. And then after transform care, we have what's called level 3 of care, or awaken or wellness care. At this point, when my clients are coming in for care, it's for wellness. It's not because they're in pain, right? It's not because they're symptoming, but it is a part of them staying as healthy as they can, because we do live in this stressful world. So some people come in once a week because they have a very stressful job, or they come in once every other week, once a month. Again, it's totally up to them, but that's typically how that rolls. And again, I do meet with everybody at a progress visit on a regular basis. So we get to communicate and I get to find out, like, how are they doing? So is that helpful answer for you?
Yeah, I've never been to a chiropractor, so I don't know how. It sounds like it's very different from my layman's idea of going to a chiropractor, and
Yeah.
It seems like it's a little more holistic than what I think of traditionally as chiropractic care. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will actually I'm so glad that you brought that up, because this is a chiropractic technique, right? But people typically think of chiropractic care as like the twisting, popping, snapping, adjusting a vertebrae, right? That's out of alignment, putting pressure on the nerves. So one thing just to consider is that bones, like the vertebrae stack, bones don't move on their own in our bodies. It requires a muscle attachment to tighten up or activate in order to move a bone. Same thing with a vertebrae. So if a vertebrae goes out of alignment, it's because a muscle attachment has tightened up. Muscles don't just tighten on their own. They require the nervous system, like that fight, flight, tension activation, to activate the muscles, right? So if you can go ahead and get adjusted a lot, but if your nervous system is still cycling that fight flight mode, you're going to tend to feel relief initially, but you're also going to tend to then have symptoms come back. And that's really why I chose to not practice traditional chiropractic, but chose to practice network care because the changes are more sustainable. Yeah. So yeah, really good, Melanie. Thank you for bringing that up. So, any other questions? Mark.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Karen. This was such an enlightening presentation, and this will go up on our website. So lots of people will be having access to this really great informative information. So this is a lot to take in, and I think it's really important information. So thank you so much for being here and doing this forum.
Thank you so much. It was seriously, it was such an honor. I'm so glad to know actually that you guys exist. And I think you're literally like 4 blocks away from my office.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, so fantastic. Because I know you guys do wonderful work. And yeah, I'm absolutely thrilled to be here today and to be able to share this information. So thank you.
Thank you so much.